Damon Whitaker heard his wife laughing in the hospital hallway 3 days after the doctors told him he might not live through the weekend. It was not the soft laugh she used when she was trying to be kind. It was the bright one. The one she gave to cameras, donors, wealthy clients, and men she wanted to impress. Damon lay in a private room on the 7th floor of St. Catherine Medical Center, surrounded by machines that breathed, beeped, measured, and judged him more honestly than most people ever had. An oxygen tube ran beneath his nose. A heart monitor blinked green beside his bed. His left hand was bruised from 4 lines. His chest still hurt from the emergency surgery that had cracked open more than bone. Through the half-open door, he heard his wife, Brielle, say, "No, stop. Not here." Then a man answered, low and amused. "Why not? He's asleep." Damon did not move. He knew that voice. His brother. Malcolm. For a long moment, Damon stared at the ceiling tiles and let the truth enter slowly, one piece at a time, because pain had made him patient. Brielle laughed again. Then came the soft sound of a kiss. Not on the cheek. Not family. Not innocent. Damon closed his eyes. He had survived a cardiac event severe enough to send 3 specialists into the room with faces carefully arranged to avoid panic. He had survived surgery. He had survived waking up with a breathing tube in his throat and his mother's favorite psalm being whispered by a nurse who did not know him. But that sound in the hallway did what the heart attack could not. It made something inside him go still. The door opened a few inches wider. Brielle stepped in first, wearing a cream designer coat over a black dress, her hair perfect, her perfume too expensive for a hospital room. Malcolm came behind her in a navy suit, hands in his pockets, wearing the same easy confidence he had worn since childhood, the confidence of a man used to taking what Damon built and calling it charm. Brielle's smile vanished when she saw Damon's eyes open. "Oh," she said. "You're awake." Damon turned his head slightly. Malcolm recovered faster. "Hey, big brother," he said. "How you feeling?" Damon looked at him for a long time. "Alive." Something flickered across Malcolm's face. Disappointment, perhaps. Or calculation. Brielle came to the bedside and placed her hand on Damon's blanket, not on his skin. "You scared us," she said. Damon's eyes moved to her hand. Her wedding ring was gone. Not misplaced. Gone. The pale mark where it had been was faint but visible. "You took off your ring," he said. Brielle's face tightened. Malcolm looked toward the window. She pulled her hand back. "My fingers were swollen." Damon almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because even near death, people still lied badly when they thought you were too weak to challenge them. "From what?" he asked. Brielle blinked. "What?" "Your fingers." "Swollen from what?" Her mouth opened, then closed. Malcolm stepped forward. "Damon, don't start. You need rest." Damon turned his eyes to him. "Do I?" The room chilled. Brielle adjusted her coat. "We came to check on you." "You were laughing." She looked offended. "Are you angry that I laughed?" "Damon, I've been under so much stress." "With my brother?" Malcolm sighed loudly. "There it is." Damon said nothing. Malcolm walked closer to the bed. He was 2 years younger than Damon, taller by an inch, lighter-skinned, handsome in a polished way that had always made strangers trust him faster. As boys, Malcolm could break a vase and convince their mother the table had moved. Damon learned early that truth required documentation when Malcolm was in the room. "You need to calm down," Malcolm said. "Your heart can't handle this." Damon looked at the monitor. It beeped steadily. "My heart has handled you for 40 years. Malcolm's jaw tightened. Brielle inhaled sharply. That's unnecessary. So was the kiss in the hallway. Silence. There it was. No one moved. Brielle looked at Malcolm. Malcolm looked at Damon. For the first time since entering the room, neither of them had an answer prepared. Then Brielle straightened. Something cold entered her face. You heard? Yes. She stared at him, then gave a small, tired laugh. Not guilty. Relieved. As if hiding had been inconvenient. Damon, she said, this is not the time. He watched her. The woman he had married 9 years earlier would have cried. She would have reached for his hand. She would have said his name like it belonged somewhere sacred. This woman stood at his bedside in a hospital room, waiting to see how much strength he had left before deciding how honest to become. When is the time? He asked. Brielle looked toward the machines. After. After what? She did not answer. Malcolm did. After we know whether you're going to make it. Damon turned slowly toward his brother. The words hung in the room like smoke. Brielle whispered, Malcolm. But she did not deny it. Damon's chest hurt. Not from surgery this time. From understanding. You've been waiting, he said. Brielle closed her eyes. Malcolm spread his hands. Nobody wanted this to happen like this. Damon gave him a weak smile. No. You wanted it cleaner. Malcolm stepped back, anger showing now. You always do that. Act like you're the only decent man in the room. No, Damon said. Just the only one in this room who didn't kiss his brother's wife outside an ICU. Brielle's face hardened. I am tired of being treated like property. Damon looked at her. I never treated you like property. You treated me like an obligation. Like something you maintained. I loved you. You provided, she snapped. That's not the same. There are sentences that reveal years. That one did. Damon remembered every late night at the office. Every loan he paid. Every event he funded. Every boutique idea Brielle abandoned after the excitement faded. Every time she told him he was too quiet, too practical, too serious, too rooted in things that made her feel small. He remembered Malcolm visiting more often after Brielle grew restless. He remembered them laughing in the kitchen when he came home tired. He remembered telling himself not to become suspicious just because he was exhausted. He had mistaken his own decency for blindness. Is that what you told yourself? Damon asked. Brielle's eyes shined, but not with regret. With Malcolm, I feel seen. Damon almost laughed, but his body would not allow it. Malcolm sees whatever he can take. Malcolm stepped closer. You don't know anything about me. I know you borrowed $20,000 from me to start a consulting firm that never existed. Malcolm's face darkened. I know you used Mama's retirement account as collateral without telling her. Brielle looked at Malcolm. What? Damon kept going. I know you came to me crying when the dealership threatened to repossess your car, then told everyone I helped because I needed control. I know you have been jealous since we were children, not because I had more, but because I built what you only performed. Shut up, Malcolm said. The monitor beeped faster. Brielle glanced at it. For a moment, Damon thought she might worry. Instead, she looked irritated. I can't do this, she said. Damon turned to her. What are you doing, Brielle? She lifted her chin. I'm leaving. The word was not surprising. Still, it landed. When? Today. Damon stared. I'm in the hospital. I know. You're leaving me in the hospital? Her mouth trembled, but pride held it together. You have nurses, doctors, your lawyers, your money. You always have something. And you have Malcolm. Malcolm put a hand on her shoulder. She did not move away. That was the answer. Damon looked at both of them. A dying man, or a man they believed might be dying, often receives truths others would hide from the healthy. People show impatience when they think time has already taken their opponent's future. You planned this, Damon said. Brielle did not speak. Malcolm did. We were going to tell you after you stabilized. And if I didn't? No one answered. The room filled with the sound of the monitor. Damon closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them. Get out. Brielle flinched. Damon, get out. Malcolm smirked. Don't worry. We will. He guided Brielle toward the door. At the threshold, she turned back. There was a flicker of something then. Not love. Not remorse. Fear, perhaps, of a line crossed too far. I hope you recover, she said. Damon looked at her. No, he said softly. You hope I don't recover angry. Her face went pale. Then she left. Malcolm followed. The door closed. Damon lay still. 1 minute. 2. Then he reached for the call button. When the nurse came in, he asked for his phone. Mr. Whitaker, she said gently, you need rest. I know. You're not supposed to handle stressful calls. This one will reduce stress. She hesitated, then handed it to him. Damon dialed his attorney. When Naomi Bell answered, he said, I need to change my will. There was a pause. Naomi's voice became sharp. Damon, what happened? My wife left me in the hospital to marry my brother. Another pause. Then Naomi said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Before the hospital, before the betrayal, before the will was read aloud in a room full of people who had mistaken silence for weakness, Damon Whitaker had been a boy who loved machines because machines did not lie. He grew up in Camden Ridge, a working-class black neighborhood outside Atlanta where every family knew which houses had fathers, which had grandmothers, which had cars that needed pushing on cold mornings, and which had boys likely to disappear into trouble if no one called their names loudly enough. Damon's father, Leon Whitaker, drove buses for the city. His mother, Marjorie, worked in payroll at a textile company. They were not wealthy, but they believed in structure. Homework before television. Church on Sunday. Shoes polished even if the soles were thin. Damon was the older son. That meant responsibility arrived before childhood finished. Malcolm was the younger son. That meant charm arrived before accountability began. When Malcolm broke things, Damon fixed them. When Malcolm spent money, Damon loaned it. When Malcolm disappointed people, Damon softened the explanation. For years, Damon told himself this was brotherhood. Family covered family. But family can become a language selfish people use to avoid consequences. Damon learned that late. His gift was systems. At 16, he was rebuilding old computers from discarded parts. At 22, he was managing inventory software for a shipping company. At 28, he built a logistics routing platform that reduced delivery waste for small regional carriers. He took a risk, left his job, and founded Whitaker Systems, a software company serving mid-sized distribution firms ignored by larger tech vendors. The first years nearly broke him. He slept in the office. Ate vending machine dinners. Paid employees before himself. Sat in bank lobbies waiting for loan officers who called him ambitious in the tone people use when they mean unrealistic. Then the platform worked. Not loudly. Not like the startups in magazines. It worked in warehouses, shipping yards, food distributors, medical supply chains, and regional trucking hubs where reliability mattered more than hype. By the time Damon turned 38, Whitaker Systems was profitable, respected, and quietly valuable. He expanded into supply chain financing, commercial property, and private investments. He became wealthy without becoming flashy, which confused people who thought success required noise. Brielle met him at a fundraiser for entrepreneurs of color. She was 32, beautiful, sharp, and dressed in red like she knew the room needed help noticing her. She ran a boutique event design company that produced corporate galas, weddings, and luxury brand launches. She was good at beauty. Better at ambition. Damon admired her. She admired his stability. At first, that was enough. He invested in her business. Not recklessly, not as a husband trying to own his wife's dream, but carefully, with contracts she laughed at until he explained that clean paperwork protected love from later confusion. Brielle used his money to expand, hire staff, and pursue high-end clients. She told people they were a power couple. Damon did not like the phrase. Brielle loved it. The marriage began with warmth and ended in performance. He wanted home. She wanted arrival. He liked quiet dinners. She wanted tables where people watched them sit down. He gave her freedom. She called it emotional distance. He paid attention in practical ways. She said he lacked passion. The first time she compared him to Malcolm, Damon should have heard the warning. "Your brother knows how to enjoy life," she said one evening after Malcolm took them to a rooftop lounge he could not afford. "Malcolm knows how to charge enjoyment to someone else's card." She rolled her eyes. "You're so judgmental." "I paid his rent last month." "That doesn't mean you have to look down on him." Damon looked at her carefully. "I don't look down on Malcolm. I look at him directly. That's what bothers him." After that, Malcolm came around more often when Damon was traveling. He asked Brielle for business advice. She asked him for help with client events. They became a team in the way betrayal always claims to be teamwork before it admits what it is. Damon saw pieces. A late text. A joke ending when he entered. A charge on a hotel bar tab from a night Brielle said she stayed home. But Damon had built a life by trusting evidence, not insecurity. He waited for proof. The proof came too late. The heart attack happened in the middle of a negotiation for the sale of a minority stake in Whitaker Systems. Damon had been under stress for months, managing expansion, legal disputes, and an acquisition offer from a national tech firm. He ignored chest pain twice. The third time, he collapsed in his office. His assistant found him. The doctors called Brielle. She arrived 3 hours later. Malcolm arrived with her. That detail returned to Damon often. Together. They had arrived together. Naomi Bell came to the hospital that afternoon wearing a dark suit and the expression of a woman prepared to fight death if it failed to respect procedure. She had been Damon's attorney for 14 years and had once told him he trusted family like a man who had never read probate litigation. Now she stood beside his bed with a notepad. "Tell me exactly what you want," she said. Damon was tired, but his mind was clear. "Remove Brielle as primary beneficiary." "Done." "Remove Malcolm from anything connected to family shares, real estate, and trusts." Naomi nodded. "Who replaces them?" "My mother." "Then the Whitaker Foundation." "Specific charitable purpose?" "Scholarships for black students in logistics, engineering, and healthcare administration. Also a fund for hospital patients abandoned during critical illness." Naomi looked up at that. Damon's mouth twitched. "Too specific?" "No," she said. "Specific is how pain becomes useful." He continued. "Brielle's business equity. I want reviewed. If ownership depends on my capital contributions, secure my position." If she violated marital or business agreements, pursue accordingly. Naomi wrote. And Malcolm? Damon closed his eyes briefly. He owes money through 3 informal loans. Make them formal. Demand repayment. Naomi looked over her glasses. You kept documentation? Damon gave her a weak look. She almost smiled. Of course you did. Then he said, I want a living trust amendment. If I die, I want the will read with all relevant family present. No private summary. Naomi paused. You want it read aloud? Yes. That's not usually necessary. It is this time. She studied him. Damon, are you doing this for revenge? He looked toward the hospital window. Beyond it, afternoon light lay across the city he had spent his life working inside, building quietly while others mistook quiet for lack. No, he said. I'm doing it because people who planned around my death should hear what my life was worth. Naomi closed the folder. Then let's make sure you stay alive long enough to enjoy the footnotes. Brielle did not return to the hospital. Not the next day. Not the day after. She sent one text. I need space. This has been traumatic for me too. Damon read it once and deleted it. His mother, Marjorie, came every day. She was 70, small, elegant, and still capable of making grown men straighten when she entered a room. She sat beside Damon's bed, lotioning his hands because hospital air made them dry. I never liked that girl's spirit, she said on the 4th day. Damon sighed. Mama. What? I'm recovering. I waited 4 days. That is mercy. He almost laughed, then winced. She leaned over. Don't laugh. Your stitches. You're the one being funny. I am being accurate. She dabbed lotion across his knuckles. Did you know about Malcolm? Marjorie's face changed. That was answer enough. Damon looked at her. Mama. I suspected. For how long? Long enough to pray I was wrong. He closed his eyes. She continued, voice softer. I asked Malcolm once if he remembered you were his brother. Damon opened his eyes. What did he say? He said you had everything. Damon looked toward the ceiling. There it was again. The old wound. Malcolm did not want Damon's money. Not only. He wanted correction for a story he had told himself since childhood, that Damon's discipline had stolen attention Malcolm deserved. That Damon's success was an accusation. That every room praising Damon was secretly insulting him. Marjorie squeezed Damon's hand. Baby, envy doesn't count blessings. It counts yours. 2 weeks later, Damon was discharged. He did not go home. Home was the house he and Brielle had renovated together, a glass and stone place she loved because it photographed well. Damon had no desire to recover under ceilings chosen by a woman planning to leave him for his brother. He moved into a quiet apartment owned by one of his companies under Naomi's supervision. Private nursing. Cardiac rehab. Legal meetings. Silence. During that silence, Brielle and Malcolm moved fast. Too fast. 3 weeks after Damon left the hospital, Brielle filed for divorce, citing emotional neglect and irreconcilable differences. 5 days later, Malcolm posted a photograph from a beach resort with no caption, just a glass of champagne and a woman's hand visible at the edge of the frame. Damon recognized Brielle's bracelet. By the 6th week, rumors spread through Atlanta's social circles that Brielle and Malcolm had found love through a painful season. That was how Betrayal rebranded itself when it could afford a photographer. By the 8th week, Damon received a wedding announcement. Not an invitation. An announcement. Brielle Hart Whittaker and Malcolm James Whittaker request the honor of your prayers as they begin their life together. Damon stared at the card. Then he called Naomi. They're getting married before the divorce is final? Ceremonial destination event, Naomi said dryly. Not legally valid yet. Of course. They're trying to create public momentum. Sympathy. A narrative. What narrative? That you were cold, controlling, emotionally unavailable, and they fell in love while caring for you. Damon laughed once. This time his stitches had healed enough for it not to hurt. Caring for me? Yes. They left me in the hospital. Facts rarely stop people from hiring publicists. Brielle did hire one. Within a month, a lifestyle blog published an anonymous piece about a woman choosing love after years in a lonely marriage to a powerful entrepreneur. It described Damon as brilliant but emotionally absent. It described Malcolm as warm, spontaneous, healing. It did not name anyone directly, but every detail pointed. Damon's board grew concerned. His investors called. His mother threatened to visit Brielle with a handbag heavy enough to require a police report. Naomi advised patience. Let them talk, she said. People reveal strategy when they think silence means fear. Meanwhile, Damon discovered the deeper betrayal. Financial records showed Brielle had moved money from her event company into a new venture account controlled jointly with Malcolm. Some of the seed funding traced back to capital Damon had invested under an agreement restricting transfer without consent. Malcolm had used Damon's name to approach two lenders, implying access to Whittaker Systems' assets. Worse, emails suggested Malcolm had been telling people Damon's health was declining and transition planning was underway. Transition planning. Another clean phrase for waiting on a man to die. Damon read the emails in Naomi's office. His hands did not shake. That surprised him. Maybe grief had burned through the part of him that trembled. What do you want to do? Naomi asked. Everything legal. That leaves a lot. Good. The first lawsuit filed quietly. Then the second. Then creditor demands. Then emergency motions to prevent misuse of Damon's name, likeness, business relationships, and confidential financial representations. Brielle's event company froze under forensic accounting review. Malcolm's lenders withdrew. The destination wedding sponsors, because, unbelievably, Brielle had negotiated brand sponsorships for the event, began asking questions. Still, they held the ceremony. Because people who build a lie in public often decide the only escape is more public. The wedding took place at a coastal resort in the Bahamas, white sand, blue water, floral arches, drone footage, and guests wearing linen while pretending not to know the bride was still legally entangled with the groom's brother. Brielle wore a silk gown. Malcolm wore ivory. Photos appeared online before the vows ended. Damon saw one image. Brielle smiling at Malcolm beneath white flowers. His brother's hand at her waist. The caption read, "Love wins." Damon turned off his phone. 3 days later, Damon collapsed again. Not a heart attack this time. A complication. Internal bleeding linked to medication. Sudden, dangerous, ugly. He was rushed back to St. Catherine. Surgery again. Monitors again. White ceilings again. This time, Brielle did come. Not immediately. But when the prognosis worsened and rumors spread that Damon might not survive the night, she appeared with Malcolm in the waiting room, both dressed in travel clothes, both wearing expressions arranged into concern. Marjorie saw them first. She stood from her chair. No. Brielle put a hand to her chest. Marjorie, please. We came because we care. Marjorie looked at Malcolm. You came because vultures circle when the breathing slows. Malcolm's face tightened. Mama, don't do this. Don't call me mama in public after what you did in private. Hospital security drifted closer. Naomi arrived 10 minutes later. She saw Brielle and Malcolm, then looked at Marjorie. Are they causing distress? Marjorie said, by existing. Naomi almost smiled. Brielle stepped forward. I have a right to be here. I'm still his wife. Naomi turned to her. Legally, for the moment. Medically, he has updated his authorization. You are not his healthcare proxy. Brielle's face changed. What? Nor are you authorized to receive medical updates without his consent. Malcolm scoffed. This is ridiculous. Naomi looked at him. Mr. Whitaker, you are not listed as family for medical purposes. I'm his brother. Biologically. The word landed like a slap. Brielle's voice sharpened. You can't keep us from him if he's dying. Naomi stepped closer. If he is dying, the last thing he needs is the two people who treated his death like scheduling. The waiting room fell silent. For once, Brielle had no cameras, no flattering lighting, no guests, no music, no caption. Just truth and hospital chairs. Damon survived the night. Barely. For 3 days, he drifted in and out. He remembered voices. His mother praying. Naomi discussing documents. A nurse telling him to squeeze her hand. Once, in the doorway, he thought he saw Brielle crying. Maybe he imagined it. Maybe she was. People can be cruel and still afraid of the grave. On the 4th day, Damon woke fully. Naomi was seated beside his bed, reading. You look terrible, he whispered. She looked up. So do you. Good. I'd hate to lose consistency. She closed the book. How do you feel? Like I fired my body and it refused to leave the building. That's fair. He looked toward the door. Were they here? Yes. My mother? Magnificent. Brielle? Also here. Malcolm? Yes. Damon closed his eyes. After a moment, he said, if I had died? Naomi placed a folder on the bedside table. Everything was ready. He opened his eyes. But you didn't. No. A faint smile touched her mouth. So now we have options. 2 weeks later, the will was read aloud anyway. Not because Damon died. Because Damon allowed everyone to believe, for 48 carefully managed hours, that his condition had worsened and certain estate matters required immediate family review in the event of incapacity or death. It was Naomi's idea to call it a contingency reading. Damon called it theater with legal footnotes. Marjorie called it, finally, some entertainment. The meeting took place in a private conference room at St. Catherine Medical Center. Present were Damon, still pale but upright in a wheelchair, Marjorie, Naomi, Brielle, Malcolm, Brielle's attorney, 2 representatives from Whitaker Systems, and a trust officer. Brielle arrived in black. Damon noticed. Widow colors for a living husband. Malcolm wore a gray suit and the solemn expression of a man hoping for assets. Neither expected Damon to be in the room. When they entered and saw him seated near the window, Malcolm stopped walking. Brielle went white. Damon, she said. He nodded. Brielle. Malcolm looked at Naomi. What is this? A reading of Mr. Whitaker's revised estate directives, trust amendments, and related legal notices, Naomi said. He's alive, Malcolm snapped. Naomi looked at him over her glasses. Your powers of observation remain limited but functional. Marjorie coughed into her hand. Damon almost smiled. Brielle sat slowly. Her attorney whispered something to her. She shook her head, eyes fixed on Damon.
Naomi opened the binder.
Before we begin, she said, Mr. Whitaker requested this reading occur aloud because several parties in this room made personal, financial, and relational decisions based on assumptions regarding his death. Malcolm shifted in his chair.
Brielle looked down. Naomi began.
She read calmly, precisely, without drama, which made every word heavier. Damon Whitaker revoked all prior beneficiary designations naming Brielle Hart Whitaker as primary heir, executor, healthcare proxy, trustee, business successor, insurance beneficiary, or recipient of personal residence rights.
Brielle's head snapped up. What? Naomi did not pause. All marital property claims would be addressed through divorce proceedings and prenuptial/postnuptial agreements.
All separate property, business equity, investment holdings, intellectual property, trust assets, and family foundation holdings were excluded from her inheritance.
Brielle whispered, Damon.
He did not respond.
Naomi continued.
Malcolm James Whitaker was removed from all family trust contingencies, informal succession expectations, emergency ownership provisions, and personal forgiveness clauses attached to documented loans.
Malcolm frowned.
Personal forgiveness clauses?
Damon spoke for the first time. If I died, I had planned to forgive your debts. Malcolm stared. Naomi turned a page.
Instead, all documented loans to Malcolm James Whitaker were now due under formal repayment demand, including principal, interest as allowed, and recovery of funds obtained through misrepresentation involving Whitaker's systems or Damon Whitaker's personal credit reputation.
Malcolm stood. This is insane.
Marjorie looked at him.
Sit down before your debt gets taller. He sat. Naomi continued.
Brielle's event company would undergo forensic review related to capital contributed by Damon Whitaker, including potential breach of investment agreements, unauthorized transfer, misuse of restricted funds, and concealment of jointly relevant financial activities.
Brielle's attorney leaned forward. We'll contest. You may respond through proper channels, Naomi said. Today is notice.
Then came the foundation. In the event of Damon's death, the majority of his estate would pass to the Whitaker Living Systems Foundation, funding scholarships, hospital patient advocacy, emergency legal support for abandoned spouses in critical care, and workforce training for black students in logistics and medical technology.
Marjorie wiped one eye. Damon looked away.
Naomi read the final personal statement, written by Damon 2 days after Brielle left the hospital. To those present, if this document is being read because I am dead, know that I died understanding more than you believed I did. If it is being read while I am alive, know that I chose clarity over bitterness. My wife left me in a hospital bed to begin a life with my brother. My brother mistook my illness for opportunity. Both believed my silence was weakness and my generosity permanent.
They were wrong. Brielle began to cry. Naomi continued.
I do not leave my life's work to people who waited for my life to end. I leave it to those who helped me build, heal, learn, and stand.
Blood is not entitlement. Marriage is not permission. Love without loyalty is only appetite with better language.
The room was utterly silent.
Damon watched Malcolm's face. Anger. Humiliation. Then something smaller. Fear. Naomi closed the binder. That concludes the reading. Brielle stood abruptly. Can I speak to my husband alone? Damon answered before Naomi could. No. Her face crumpled. I made a mistake. He looked at her. You made plans. That's not fair. It is exact. She stepped toward him. I was lonely. Damon nodded once. I believe you. That seemed to give her hope. Then he said, loneliness explains a wound. It does not excuse choosing my brother as the knife. She covered her mouth. Malcolm stood again, eyes blazing. You always wanted to humiliate me. Damon turned to him slowly. No, Malcolm. I wanted to help you. You wanted me beneath you. I wanted you honest. Malcolm laughed bitterly. You think you're some saint because you wrote checks? Damon's voice remained calm. No.
I think I was a fool for writing them without requiring change.
Marjorie stood then.
Both sons looked at her. Her voice was quiet.
Malcolm, I loved you before you learned to lie. I love you now.
But if love could fix character by itself, your brother would not be sitting in that chair with scars in his chest while you complain about what you lost.
Malcolm looked wounded for the first time. Not exposed. Wounded.
He opened his mouth, but nothing came.
Brielle left first. Then her attorney.
Then Malcolm, without looking at Damon. The door closed. Marjorie sat beside her son and took his hand.
Naomi gathered her papers. Damon exhaled slowly. Was that cruel? He asked. Naomi looked at him. No. Cruel would have been letting them keep believing consequences were only for other people. The divorce finalized 9 months later.
Brielle received what the law required, far less than what she expected. Her event company survived, but smaller, stripped of capital she could not justify and reputation she could not fully repair. The sponsored wedding photos disappeared from her social media, though screenshots lived forever in places she could not control. Her ceremonial marriage to Malcolm never became legal. That part surprised no one except perhaps Malcolm. Once the money froze, the lawsuits began, and the public romance became a liability. Brielle discovered that Malcolm's warmth cooled quickly under pressure. Malcolm discovered that Brielle's devotion required a lifestyle he could not fund. They separated before winter. Malcolm tried to reconcile with Damon twice. The first time, he asked for money. The second time, he apologized. Damon accepted neither quickly. Years of enabling had taught him that urgency was Malcolm's oldest costume. But time, debt, disgrace, and Marjorie's refusal to rescue him forced Malcolm into a smaller, harder life. He took a real job managing operations for a repair supply company. For the first time in his adult life, he paid something back monthly. Not enough to erase. Enough to begin. Damon recovered slowly. Heart recovery was not cinematic. It was humiliating. Walking 5 minutes. Resting. Eating carefully. Sleeping badly. Learning which pain was normal and which required a call. Letting nurses help. Letting his mother fuss. Letting Naomi tell him not to answer business emails while medicated. He stepped away from daily leadership at Whitaker Systems and appointed a CEO who had earned the role. He remained chairman, less visible, more deliberate. The company grew without requiring him to bleed for it. The foundation became his real work. The first program funded patient advocates for people hospitalized without reliable family support. Damon visited one of the hospitals during the first year and met a man named Curtis, recovering from surgery while his wife handled everything alone because she could not afford to miss work. The advocate arranged paperwork, meals, transportation, and legal guidance. Curtis's wife hugged Damon in the hallway. "You don't know what this means," she said. Damon looked through the glass at Curtis sleeping. "I know enough." 3 years after the will was read aloud, Damon attended the opening of the Whitaker Center for Medical Logistics and Patient Support, a training and advocacy hub connected to St. Catherine. The same hospital where Brielle left him. The same hospital where he changed his will. The same hospital where he learned that survival was not just continuing to breathe, but choosing what would live through you afterward. He stood at the podium that morning in a dark suit, thinner than before, scar beneath his shirt, mother in the front row, Naomi beside her. Reporters waited. Donors waited. Students waited. Damon looked out at the room. "When I was lying in this hospital," he said, "I learned that illness reveals more than the body.
It reveals systems, family systems, legal systems, medical systems, financial systems.
It shows who is protected, who is abandoned, who understands the forms, who gets ignored, and who is expected to suffer quietly. The room was still.
I cannot undo what happened to me. I cannot make betrayal noble by turning it into a lesson. Pain is not automatically purpose. Sometimes pain is just pain.
But what we build after it can become shelter for someone else.
Marjorie cried openly. Naomi pretended to check her program. Damon smiled slightly.
This center exists so that no patient has to face critical illness alone because the people closest to them fail the test of loyalty. It exists because paperwork matters, advocacy matters, and dignity should not depend on whether your family deserves your trust.
After the ceremony, Damon walked alone down the 7th floor hallway. The hospital had renovated since his stay. New paint, better lighting, different chairs.
But when he passed the room where he had once heard Brielle laughing with Malcolm, he stopped. A younger version of himself still lived there in memory.
Weak, humiliated, listening, waiting to see who would enter and who would leave. Damon placed one hand against the wall. For a moment, anger returned. Not as fire, as weather. Then it passed. He walked on.
Near the elevators, his phone buzzed.
A message from Malcolm. Paid this month's amount. Also, I started therapy. Not asking for anything. Just telling you. Damon read it twice. He did not answer immediately. Then he wrote back, "Keep going." 2 words. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. But not silence either. That evening, Damon visited his mother for dinner.
She made baked chicken, greens, cornbread, and sweet potatoes because she still believed food could reinforce the living. Afterward, they sat on her porch while the sun lowered over Camden Ridge.
"You happy?" she asked. Damon thought about it. Happiness was not the word he would have chosen.
He was not the man he had been before the hospital.
Some wounds healed into wisdom. Others simply became quieter.
But his life was his again. His work had meaning. His home was peaceful. His heart, repaired and scarred, still kept time.
"I'm free," he said. Marjorie nodded. "That's better than happy some days." He smiled. Across the street, children rode bikes under streetlights just beginning to glow.
Somewhere, a car stereo played Old Soul.
A neighbor waved. The evening smelled like cut grass, warm pavement, and somebody grilling too much food on purpose. Damon leaned back in his chair.
His wife had left him in the hospital to marry his brother. Then his will was read aloud.
People loved that part of the story. The shock. The humiliation. The reversal. The moment greed discovered paperwork had teeth. But Damon knew the real ending was quieter.
The real ending was a man learning that survival did not require him to stay generous to those who confused his love with access. It was a mother who stayed. A lawyer who protected.
A company that grew without devouring him.
A foundation that turned abandonment into advocacy. A brother beginning, late and imperfectly, to repay more than money. And Damon himself, breathing steadily beneath a wide Georgia sky, no longer waiting for betrayal to explain his worth. His heart had been opened twice.
Once by surgeons. Once by truth.
Only one of those wounds made him stronger.